Hi, in this episode of Pycast, we're going to be looking at Day 1, Part 2. The first part of Day 1 was basically counting left parentheses and right parentheses. This is what Part 2 does. Now, given the same instructions, find the position of the first character that causes him to enter the basement. He starts off at floor 0, and let's see when he gets to floor -1. The first character in the instruction has position 1, so now we're doing 1 base counting instead of 0 base counting. The second character has position 2, and so on. If we just have a right parenthesis here, he goes to the basement, so his floor is -1, and that's position 1, so that's the first one. And this one goes up, down, down to the basement, and that's the fifth character. I'm going to use the same data set here, and I'm going to come back to my notebook. I'll hit B here, that makes a new cell, and I'm going to hit 2. That puts me in a markdown heading mode. I hit enter to enter the cell, and I can say Part 2 Day 1. Now if I hit Control Enter here, that renders the markdown. Hit B to make a new cell. So this time I want to find the index of when I get into floor -1. I'll just do a for loop for this, so I can do something like this. I start off at floor equals 0, and for, I'm going to say I and instruction in enumerate. If you're not familiar with the enumerate function, it's a great built-in function in Python. It takes a sequence and returns a tuple of the index and the item in the sequence when you loop over it. And so I'm going to say for I instruction in enumerate data, data was my list of parentheses up here. If instruction equals the string left parentheses, then floor plus equals 1, elif instruction equals right parentheses, floor minus equals 1, and then here I'm going to check if my floor equals -1. I want to print the index where I am. Okay, so at various points I get different indices here. I go into that basement floor, and it looks like the first one is 1796. One thing to be aware of is that they said the first character has position 1, and Python by default is 0 based. We can actually put in enumerate here. If I do Shift Tab, it says there's an optional argument called start. The default's at 0. If we put in 1 here, we'll actually get the right numbers. Then it goes into 1797. And so that's the right solution there. At index position 1797, he's in the basement. That's part 2 of Day 1 on the advent of code. Hopefully this is useful to you. We've talked about the enumerate function that's built into Python. You can see here that we're doing what's called unpacking, where we can unpack right in the for loop here, so we get the index and the item of iteration, and we can change enumerate to count by 1 rather than 0.